So we're on Eruvin Sameches. So Rava, there was a case where there was a child who needed hot water. So there was a question whether they could. Rava wanted to say, tell a Gentile to bring the hot water, because remember they didn't make an eruv. So, and then so they were going to ask a kasha. Hazosh was preparing or sprinkling para aduma water on somebody is osir midrabanan on Shabbos. The amira l'nachri Shabbos. If you tell a Gentile, you're not allowed to tell a Gentile to do something that is forbidden for you to do midoraisa. But that's midrabanan. You can't tell a Gentile to turn on the light. So ma'azor shvus v'nedochas Shabbos. So just like sprinkling paraduma is a shvus, and even for a mitzvah. So for example, let's say an Erev Pesach is a Shabbos, and the person is tamei, and he cannot do the mitzvah of Korban Pesach in a state of tumah. So why don't we do a rabbinic shvus to allow him to do a mitzvah deraisa? We say no. The shvus of Hazor is not, even b'makom mitzvah, is not doiche. Afa mir l'nochri shvus v'nedochas Shabbos. Meaning, Rava, they didn't have hot water for the child. So Rava said, and the child is getting circumcised. So if you're not allowed to tell a goy amir l'nochri is a shvus, it's also not doiche Shabbos, even if it's done for a mitzvah. Omar lei. So Abaye said, "V'lo shani loch bein shvus to isbei ma'isa." The Rishonim explain here, ma'isa means malacha. L'shvus to lesbei ma'isa. Dehamar lo amar l'nochri zil achem. Rava didn't say to the non-Jew, heat up the water. He said, bring it. Doing a malacha midrabanan of carrying in an eruv without carrying in a chutz without an eruv is only a rabbinic prohibition. There's two ways of learning here. One is the standard way, which we just learned according to the Rif. The Bahag, one of the early Rishonim, learns differently. He's not gears. He didn't have in his Gemara this statement of the Har Mar Lo Amar L'Nochri Zilachin. And according to the Bahag, you can tell a Nochri to do anything, even not just if L'Moka Mitzvah, you can tell a Nochri to do even a Malacha Deraisa. According to the Rif's understanding, where we do have this Girsa of Zilachim, you can't do it. You can only do an Amir La'akum because you could do it because it was rabbinic. The Shulchan Aruch Paskins, so for a mitzvah, you can tell a goy to do something if what the goy is going to do violates a rabbinic prohibition, but not a deraisa prohibition, even for a makom mitzvah. And that's an important halacha. Amarle Rabba bar Rav Chanel Abaya. Rabba doesn't understand. Mavudi ispe tregavi Ravi krabona. Abaya and Rava were living in this chotzer and mavu, and they didn't make sure lo lavi be lo eruv lo shituv. How could they go into Shabbos and not make sure that there was an eruv and a shituv for the chotzer and the mavu? Doesn't make sense. Amarle my navid. So Abaya said, what should we do? Mar lavurche. Rava the Godel door, it's because of Kvoidoi. He's not going to go around collecting money or loaves of bread from the people in the Mavi to make a shituf. And Ano Tridna B'Grisoy. I'm a busy Talmid Chacham student. And I don't have the time to do it. Inu lo mishgachi. The Bnei Mavui didn't take care of it. The Akni Lahu Pita B'Sala. And if I would give them my bread, and I will be zoicha them in the shituf. If they need it back from me, and I can't give it back to them because I'm poor, I don't have a lot of bread, the shituf is mavatal. And we'll see, because if you can't give back the bread as part of the shituf, it won't work. The Tanya Echad B'nei Vavi should be Keshan B'Shemen. Below Nostolo. If, let's say, they made the Eruv with wine and oil, and somebody from the Bnei Vavi requested it, they didn't give it, so there's no shituf. It breaks the whole concept of shituf. But not the Lumar Reviyasa the Chala B'Chavita. So why not set up a barrel of vinegar and for the whole year, and that a certain amount of revius of the vinegar in that barrel will be dedicated for the shituf. And so even if you're not a wealthy person, it could be, that was a way that a buyer could get around and make a shituf. So that couldn't work because Tanya ein mishtatvin ba'oitzar. You can't make an eruv with something that's stored for a long period of time. Because we can't rely on breira, that later on, whatever is left over, the huvra davar l'mafreya, we use retroactive designation, that's the revius of vinegar all along. How could the buyer say that you can't make a shituf with something stored? There's a price that says you can. This not. There's a corpse who died in a house. Now the corpse is going to have to be taken out of one of the doors. That door is going to become tummy. Now, if the house has many doors, so if all the doors are closed, so all of them become tummy because there's the potential to remove the mace from every door. If one of the doors got opened, so it's assumed that the mace is going to be taken out of that door. So only that door becomes tummy. Let's say they had a machshava to take the corpse out of one of the doors, it also saves the other doors. But there's a qualification. You have a sick person, he's going to die. Before he dies, they have to make this decision. If he died and they hadn't made this decision, all the doors are, because you can't use retroactive designation and say, retroactively, even after he died. Even once you open the door after he died, it's now hurvur adav l'mafreya. So that the door that he went out with, that's the door all along. So the same thing, they argued with a storehouse of, let's say, a barrel of vinegar in that Revi'ah Sayat, and we paskin like Beis Hillel. We hold like Beis Hillel, even after the mace dies, your machashev take him out of one of the doors, it's hurvur adam l'afreya that was the door all along, and it saves all the other doors. Hahu Yanuka Dishtapu Chamima. Again, there was a child that had Mila, and they spilled the hot water. Amalu Rava Nishayla Li'ime. Let's ask the mother. Eat sricha. Remember, the mother just gave birth. She's besakana. And if she requests hot water to be heated for her, nachim lo nachri agavime. So the heating up hot water for a cholosh yesh besakana, like a mother who's just given birth, is considered a sakana. So you'd be allowed to heat up water for her. So
And
that
why are we asking the shiksa to do it? Even a Jew could do it.
if you didn't have a nachri, you could do it.
Even if you do have a nachri for a sakana, can't I?
Yes,
I
even,
think-
that's right. That's right. Even for a nach. So let Rashi. Neshadali min tzricha letzorche chamin. Nachim le nachri agav ime. The kaimalon chaya achar shiva filu amra tzrichani. En mechal lev zashabes. Aval osin law yedei armoy. So it's after 7 days because the child is 8 days old. So the din is you're not mechal Shabbos yet, but you can do it al stagoy. So it's a special din, Kenny. She's not besakana. And if this is a din that after 7 days, you can ask a goy to do it for her. But otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do it for the child, to heat up water. Remember, the previous sugya that we learned, you could tell the nachri to carry it from his house, from the chutzner into the house. See, we can't do it as Jews because no Eruv was made. But Eruv is only a D'Rabbanan. So there the Amira L'Nochri was only to violate a rabbinic law. And that's that machlokas I mentioned between the Rif and the Bahag, whether, and in fact, we paskin that you cannot tell him to do a malacha that's asr midaraisa on Shabbos. You can only tell him through Amira to violate a rabbinic prohibition. Here, we're saying, ask the mother. If the mother wants hot water, then the goy is allowed. You can ask the goy to even heat up water. Heating up water on Shabbos is a malacha deraisa, but you're allowed to ask a goy to do it. By the way, I will tell you that in this vein, I just told the story to a Rosh Hashiva because it occurred to me. This was in the mid-'80s. And I used to be the Balkoyer by Rabbi Uri, Harold remembers, at Young Israel of Beverly Hills. And at that time, there weren't that many Orthodox doctors. If you remember, there was Ivan Mauer. There were a few Orthodox doctors at Beth Jacob. The practice at that time was that if you were called on Shabbos to a hospital, there was a psak of Rav Moshe Tendler. It wasn't clear whether he got it from his father-in-law Rav Moshe or not, that you could drive home on Shabbos. Of course, driving is considered a malacha deraisa because you're lighting fire. So of course you could drive to the hospital because that's the emergency. But the question was, are you stuck at the hospital? You have to walk home, or what's the din on that? So there was a heter, and most of the physicians operated with that heter. Rabbi Uri didn't agree. Rabbi Uri didn't agree with the heter of Rav Moshe Tendler for, I don't know. So he appointed me a shaliach, and he asked, and it was Sidney Teichman's son's bar mitzvah, Dov, and Susie and I went to Yerushalayim for the bar mitzvah. And he asked me to go to Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach to ask him that specific question. That what should an Orthodox doctor do if he's called to the hospital? Can he drive home on Shabbos? And I met him, it was Hoshana Rabbah in his sukkah. I must have spent 20 minutes with him. I spoke to him in Hebrew. Very interesting. He asked me questions like, where are these hospitals? Are they in nice areas? are they like in terrible areas where the Orthodox Jew would not want to spend Shabbos there? Why did he say that? He said, let's say it's close by, certainly you should walk home. Let's say it's a place that you could keep Shabbos there. He said, you should not drive home. He said, if it's in a place like, for example, where I was at Harbor, going to Harbor, going to downtown, or some place where you would not be able to keep Shabbos there appropriately, he permitted it from doctor through Amira L'Nochri, like this case. He said you can go home by cab through a Nochri and arrange to pay him. I used to keep an envelope with money in front of my house. So if I was called on Shabbos and I had to come home, I would do it via a taxi, and I would have an envelope in front of the house, and I would say, there's an envelope there, I used to leave $20 there, and because it was always more than the cab ride. And that follows the same this is this issue of Amir L'Nochri for Chilul Shabbos. Now there's certainly heterim that some people use and said, no, I got a heter, I can drive home. And sometimes you can drive home. If, for example, you're on call multiple hospitals, your home base is at the home, you're called at the home. So there were other reasons why at some point you might be able to drive home yourself. But these shilas come up in these other cases. So the Rava said, let's ask the mother. I'm sorry. She's eating dates. So she's healthy. And she has no reason to have hot water cooked for her. So fine. So they didn't eat. Now the question is how to get this child hot water. So they thought, well, no, maybe she's like delirious and she's eating, but she doesn't know what she's eating. And really, maybe she's still sick enough to require hot water. And then they would have been able to bring the hot water that way. New case. Same story. There was a child who was circumcised and the hot water that was there got spilled. So he lived in a house that opened into a chutzner. And his wives, or the women that lived in his house, lived behind him, that didn't open up to the chutzner. He said, move all of the kalim that I have to the back house where the women are. Because he was about to ezel ve'esiv hosam ve'iftu l'ha chutzner. I am going to be mavatal my rishus in the chutzner, so that you guys can bring the hot water from chutzner to chutzner, because I'm being mavatal my rishus there, and I want my kalim over there so that I will have no problem with the kalim. So his chutzner was adjoining to the other chutzner, which had the child. How can he be mavatal from chutzner to chutzner? We learned yesterday you can't do that. Rava responded, I hold like Rav Yochanan that you can be mavatal from one to the other. V'ilo savar lomar k'Shmuel. Nesav mar beduchte, v'nifte lehu ledidu, v'nihadru inu v'nivatu lelamar. So, Bima Vatel his rishus, and then later on, they can be Mavatel it back to him, so he can use the chutzner. He's Mavatel his ownership in the chutzner, so they can bring the hot water, and then later on they'll give him the rishus back. just because you're mevatel reshus to one person, you can get it back on the same Shabbos. So anaba kishmuel spherically, but I hold like Shmuel. Dober ein mevatel v'chos mevatel. However, lav chat taimu, aren't they connected? Meaning, my time ain't mevatel v'chos mevatel. Why can't you mevatel and they mevatel it back to you? Isn't it lav mishum to kivin the bittul reshus istak lemeach lagamre? Because once you're mevatel your reshus in a chotzer, it's like as if you're gone forever. So it's as if you're now part of a different chotzer. So l'chura, the Gemara wants to think that this concept of mevatel v'chosher mevatel is connected to this concept of being mevatel from a chotzer to another. And then mar nami loy niftel. And then he wouldn't be able to do it. So Gemara says, no. Nah, it's not connected. The reason why they say you can't be mevatel v'chosher mevatel, otherwise it looks like all these dinim of Rabban are completely ridiculous. And you can do whatever you want. Oh, mevatel, then mevatel back. Like it's like selling the chametz to a non-Jew on Pesach. It's like enough already. Okay, Gufa. Rav Omar, mevatel v'chosher mevatel. You can be mevatel your reshus, and they can give it back to you. Ushmul Omar ein mevatel v'chosher mevatel. The Gemara wants to say lema Rav Shmuel beplukted Rabban and Rabbi Eliezer kamifliki. They're arguing machlokes tanoim between the Chacham and Rabbi Eliezer. What is this? We learned Rabbi Eliezer, if one of the people in the Chotzer forgot to make an Eruv, and then on Shabbos in Vatel's Rishus, they cannot go into his house. He cannot go and take things out of his house in and out of the chutzner. But to the Anshe chutzner they can, because we'll see in a minute why. Rabbi Elazar says he's out of there. The Chachamim say the people of the chutzner can go into his house. Oh, the Chachamim say they're also prohibited to go into his house. And perhaps this machlokas Rav Shmuel is the same machlokas. Amri, I could say my din of chozrin mevatlin afil Rabbi Eliezer, who normally holds that only the person who lives in the house cannot carry to and fro from the chutzner, but the other people can. Perhaps Ad can like Rabbi Eliezer hosam mevatel rishus chatzero, rishus beito bitel. Somebody who's mevatel his rishus chutzner, he's no longer allowed to use the chutzner at all. Mishum de bebayis b'le chutzner lo darinshi, because of the concept that people don't live in homes that don't open up to a courtyard. Avali'inin istaluki, but this concept, when you say I'm mevatel myself and I'm mevatel forever, maybe miyomar. Maybe he wouldn't say the same thing. Shmuel amar another, I feel like Rabbana. Shmuel says, "Hey, mevatel, I could say like the Chachamim, who prohibit everyone to use that guy's house. I could like Rabbana Hashem elamai de bevatel batel. What he was mevatel, his reshus in the chutzner, so that's mevatel. Udaloi batel lo batel. But that's which he did not mevatel. He's not mevatel. But when he is mevatel, miyai stal kelagamre. But perhaps when he does bittul, he bittles forever, and therefore I hold a mevatel mechos mevatel. This whole thing is about machlokes tanoim. Mishanos and reshuso v'hotzi. So a person did not participate in an Eruv. So, and he was mevatel his reshus to the other people in the chutzner. So he's not allowed to take things out from his house to the chutzner. He's not part of it. But he was over in Aveira, and he took things out. So, bein b'shogeg, bein b'mezid oyser. He now violated his bittul reshus, because he used the chutzner. So now his act prohibited the remaining people who live in the chutzner from carrying there. To Rab Meir. Rab Yehuda disagrees. B'mezid oyser. If he knew what he was doing and he volitionally broke the rule and carried something from his out in the chutzner, then in a chanami he prohibits. But let's say he didn't know the halacha and he moved something from his house into the chutzner, b'shoigig eino osir. Now, my lavaha kamiflagi. Maybe they're arguing the same thing. The mar savr mevatlin, the choizer mevatlin. That Reb Meir holds that if you're mevatlin your shoes, you can get it back. And now, since I brought my items back into the chutzner, it's as if I got it back. And it works no matter what, shogeg or mezi. While Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ein mevatlin v'chos mevatlin," and therefore, if I do it b'shogeg, I'm not mesalik my reshus there. No, I disagree. It's not the same machlokas. Really, kulal me'em mevatel v'chos mevatel. Once I'm mevatel reshus, I can't get it back. Rather, here it has to do with a knas. B'knos shogi got to mezid kamiflagi. We don't want this guy to use the chutzner. He was mevatel as reshus. What, you're going to make a difference between mezid and shogeg? Nah, I'm going to make a complete knas. If you do it shogeg, I'm going to knas you because we don't want you to do it b'mezid. Marsaver konsu shagot to mezi. Marsaver loy konsu shagot to mezi. Rav Ashi Amar Rav Shmuel beplukted Rav Lezer Rabbanan kamefki. Rav Ashi is no chanami. They're arguing in the machlokas Rav Lezer Rabbanan that we described above. Amar Rabba Gamliel. So in our Mishnah, it said Maisa b'tzduki echad. We said a Gentile, if he doesn't participate in the Eruv, he cannot be mevatel as reshus. You have to be soicher from him. But a tzduki, right, is a Jew who doesn't believe in Torah Shabbal Peh, he's still a Jew. And he can be mevatel his reshus. Or you forget about mevatel reshus. If 5 Jews live in a chutzner and there's a Gentile there, you can't make an Eruv. But if there's a tzduki there, you can make an Eruv and he can participate in the Eruv. And he told the story of a tzduki that, and then in the Mishnah it said, make sure you bring your items out of the chutzner first, because if you let him do it first, he is going to, let's say if your mevatel is reshus, and then he uses the chutzner, he removes the bittul reshus. So that was the case. So first of all, the Mishnah wasn't talking about a tzduki. Tzduki, man de karshmei, what's a tzduki doing there? So cheseri mechsera, there's a word missing. V'achiktani. Tzduki areu kenochri. Tanakama says that tzduki is like a Gentile. You would not be able to make an eruv with him. Rab Glimmer, tzduki ain't a kenochri. No, he's a Jew. Yisrael shechata, Yisrael hu. And he gave a story. He lived with us in a mav in Yerushalayim. Who was Rab Shimon Begamliel. Use take some of the things out of your house to the chutzner, or from the chutzner to the mavi. He, perhaps you were mevatel reshus from him, and if he uses it, all of a sudden he's going to reverse the bittul reshus. So quickly use it first. Vatanya, and there's a brisa to support what we just said. Hadar im nachri tzduki ubaitusi. A baitusi was also another one of these sects that didn't accept Torah Shabbal Peh. The leader of that sect was Baitus. The leader of the Tztukis were Tzadok. So Harei Elu Oisrin Alav. So if they live in the Chutzner, the Mavli, they aser like a Gentile. When Gamliel Oimer, no, they're like Jews. Tztuki Baitusi Ein an Oisrin. Umayse betzduki echad shayat daim Ram Gamliel b'Mavi b'Shalayim. Varmalam Ram Gamliel Levana. Bonai. Maru votziu masha atem otziim. Take out what you need to take out. Vachnisu masha atem achtim, and bring in what you need to bring in from the chutzner. Actually, this abomination will start using it via Aleichem because let's say he wasn't there, Erev Shabbos, and you were Vatal Rishus. Now, if he starts using it, he shows that he's not Vatal Rishus, he's going to ruin your ability to use the Chatzar or the Mavli. Shari Bitul Rishus Lachem. Dear Rab Meir. Rab Yudai Meir, Belosh Nacheres. Maru Vasut Sorcheim B'Mavli. Do what you need to do in the Mavli. Actually, Techshach v'Yesra Aleichem. Till it gets dark, and he will use it. Rashi says, "Mi bod yom ad shelo techshach." This is all happening before Shabbos, because Ksavar Rabbi Yehuda loy polygram Gamliel it's stuki kenochri svirlei. He holds, and Rabbi Gamliel holds that it's stuki is like a goy. The ein yachol levatel, and therefore, just like a Gentile can't do bitul rishus, and stuki can't either. Ulakam and parach vatnal Rabbi Yehuda ad shelo yotzi. Almal Rabbi Yehuda libed Rabbi Gamliel yachol levatel. Uvahu the polygram Rabbi Yehuda. Tzavar la'achar chazaka nami yachol lachzor bo. So that we're going to learn later on in the Gemara, because the Omar Mar is going to explain this brisa. Hotziu mashatem hotziu machnisu mashatem machnisim. Actually, yotzi atov ezev yesra lechem. Lemeimer dechi mafki inu v'ader mafik iu lo asar. It means if they move their things there, and then later on Shabbos he does his thing, he's not going to asr. He's going to asr them. And we'll continue this tomorrow at 4:15.
Shkoyach.
Ernie, Lila Tov, everybody.
Laila Tov.